or the CBA. Please be advised that this meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-29-20. I'm now going to turn the meeting over to Ms. Reed, our Board Relations Analyst, to take the roll call and establish a quorum. When Ms. Reed calls your name, please unmute your microphone and state your full name. Please remember to mute your microphone once you have stated your name. At the end of the roll call, Ms. Reed, please advise me as to whether we have a quorum. Thank you.
Nancy Corrigan.
Nancy Corrigan.
Michael Savoy.
Michael Savoy.
Mark Silverman.
Mark Silverman.
George Familet.
George Familet.
Mary Jiang. Mary Jiang. Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines.
Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines.
Dan Jacobson.
Dan Jacobson.
Sochi Leon.
Sochi Leon.
Luz Molina Lopez.
Luz Molina Lopez.
Carola Nicholson.
Carola Nicholson.
Dee Dee Owens.
Dee Dee Owens.
Ariel Pay.
Ariel Pay.
Deirdre Robinson.
Deirdre Robinson.
Katrina Salazar.
Katrina present.
Yin Tu.
Yin Tu.
And Mary Jiang. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. We're doing a mic check with Ms. Jiang before I proceed. Thank you.
This is the moderator, Mary Jiang. I will unmute your microphone at this moment. You have been unmuted. Can you please do a quick mic check?
Okay.
Good morning. You muted yourself. We heard you, but you muted yourself.
Okay, I'd like to proceed with my opening remarks, and I would like to thank CBA staff and the solid team for their assistance in facilitating this virtual meeting. As you know, this will be the second time that the CBA has conducted a virtual meeting. In the coming days, staff will be sending a survey to CBA members seeking feedback regarding the meeting. I encourage all members to take the time to complete the survey for future meeting enhancement. The CBA's mission is to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with established professional standards. This mission is derived from the statutory requirement that protection of the public should be the highest priority for the California Board of Accountancy in exercising its licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. Members of the public interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on our website. All lines are currently on mute. As I facilitate this meeting to allow for proceeding in an orderly manner, lines will remain on mute until I direct staff to open them for public comments. I will announce when we are accepting public comments on the various issues, and staff will open the lines as appropriate. 5 minutes will be allotted to each individual providing comments. This approach is necessary to facilitate the meeting and ensure the board has the opportunity to complete its necessary business. And I appreciate everyone's understanding of that. At this time, I will move to agenda item 1, which is public comment for items not on the September meeting agenda. The moderator will provide general instructions and then open it up for public comment. Moderator, please proceed.
This is the moderator. Before we get started, I would like to remind board members and staff who are not speaking to please mute their mics. If background noise is heard during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will provide a brief reminder or simply mute microphones from my end. Board members and staff, please identify yourself before speaking. There are members of the public in the audience and meeting minutes are being taken. To facilitate the public comment, the WebEx question and answer or the Q&A feature will be used. When the board president reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, public comment will be requested. At the board's direction, I will turn on and announce the opening of the Q&A feature. Members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by locating the command row at the bottom of the WebEx screen and clicking on the button that contains a question mark within a square with the letters QA on the right side. These instructions will be displayed on the screen at this moment and will be displayed each time public comment we're open up for public comment. In the Ask field, typically in the lower right of the WebEx screen, members of the public who wish to make a public comment will type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. Any other communication will not be responded to. Members of the public, it is not necessary to identify yourself in order to make a public comment. I will take the comments in the order that they are received. I will call on a member of the public and unmute their microphone. Member of the public will have 5 minutes to make their comments, and I will provide a 30-second time warning. And when the time is up, the microphone will be muted, and we will move on to the next member of the public who has submitted a request to make a comment. Please note that the Q&A feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. Once unmuted, the member of the public may verbally state their comments or question. The Q&A feature is not a means to type the question for a moderator or the board's or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be responded to. If any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subjected to profane language. While you are free to express your criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating in the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. If you do not have a microphone or have audio issues, please click on the audio and video at the top of your menu on the WebEx screen and switch audio. And there should have been a guide, how to join DCA WebEx event guide, that provides additional steps. So at this moment, I'm going to open it up for the Q&A. So the Q&A has been opened and the instructions are on the screen. And I will pause for a moment to allow members of the public time to access the feature. And as a reminder, the public comment is open for agenda item 1, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. So I have an individual identified as Nicholas Cano who would like to make a comment. Nicholas, I will unmute your microphone in just a moment. You'll have 5 minutes, and I'll provide you with a 30-second warning. You have been unmuted.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to have this meeting. I'm not sure if this is the most appropriate medium for my question, but I've been running out of options. I'm an initial licensing applicant that submitted my application back in early February, and I was fingerprinted, and my licensing fee check was cashed in February. And after numerous phone calls and emails, I haven't received any update on the status of my application. So I was hoping to get some guidance on the best method to reach out to get updated information on my application because the licensing info, email address, and phone calls have not been successful thus far. And that concludes my question.
Thank you, Mr. Cano. Ms. Bowers, our Executive Officer, would you please address the comment?
Yes, thank you. This is Patty Bowers, the board's Executive Officer, and I would be happy to have a member of my staff reach out to you directly. It was difficult hearing you in the beginning, so if you could just restate your name, that would be very helpful. Thank you. I do see your name typed in the question box, and I'll have a member of staff contact you.
This is the moderator. Just a friendly reminder for the members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, please submit "I would like to make a comment" in the ask field and not the full comment. So the individual that typed in the full comment, if you would like to speak, if you can please submit a request to make a public comment. I will unmute your line and then you can say your comment or ask your question to the board. So I will allow a couple seconds for you to access the Q&A feature and submit your request if you would like to do so. Individual identified as Alex. Alex, I will unmute your microphone in just a moment. You have been unmuted.
This is Alex, and my question is currently the application processing time takes more than 100 days. Yes, we understand we are at COVID time and everybody is difficult to perform the job. But this processing time takes very long time. What the board is thinking or taking action to improve this processing time? Thank you.
Alex, this is Nancy Corrigan. I'm not sure that we could hear all of your question. Would you just briefly repeat that for us? Thank you.
Okay. My question is currently the processing time, it takes over 100 days to process application because of COVID. What the board is taking action or planning any action to improve these delays?
Hi, yes. Good afternoon or good morning. This is Patty Bowers, the board's Executive Officer, and we do recognize that our processing timeframes have increased due to the temporary closure of the office and other internal changes due to the COVID pandemic. We're working diligently to address those delays. And some of the things that we are doing includes modifications to some of our internal processes to streamline activities. We also have a team of staff working most weekends, and we hope to have those processing timeframes back to an acceptable level in the near future.
This is the moderator. No further requests have been submitted. Board President, would you like us to close the Q&A feature?
Please, thank you.
Thank you. It has been closed.
Thank you. I am now moving on to Agenda Item 2, Report of the President. At this time, I would like to introduce the President and Chief Executive Officer of the California Society of Certified Public Accountants, or CalCPA, Anthony Pugliese. Mr. Pugliese is a licensed CPA in California, North Carolina, and Georgia, and holds credentials from the Chartered Global Management Accountant and Certified Information Technology Professional from the American Institute of CPAs, or AICPA. He previously served as the Chief Operating Officer for the AICPA and as an audit manager in the accounting firm of Deloitte Touche, LLP. He has also served as chairman of the board of the Greater Durham Chamber of Commerce and the Chapel Hill Chamber of Commerce, and has also served as a board member of the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce. We are pleased to have Mr. Pugliese participating in the CBA meeting to provide a report regarding Cal CPA's activities, including COVID-19 impacts. Mr. Pugliese, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nancy. And I will wait for the screen share information. I'll show you a quick presentation. There we go. Everybody, thank you very much. Nancy already introduced me. I'm Anthony Pugliese, President and CEO of Cal CPA. I've been in my role since January of 2019. Time flies. And as she also mentioned, I most recently came from the AICPA as its Chief Operating Officer after 21 years. It's wonderful to be back in California. I lived here in the early 90s. It's gotten a lot more expensive and a lot more densely populated, but it's wonderful to be back. What I wanted to do today is go over some things at Cal CPA, including the effect COVID has had on our operations, and also some of the things that we've been focusing on that are somewhat related to COVID and somewhat more strategic. And I'll try to stick within my prescribed time frame. The first thing I wanted to share is Cal CPA's strategic plan and all the things that we've been doing lately to try to further the cause of the profession. And I mean that broadly. And I won't go into any one of these in any particular detail, but I'll talk briefly in a moment about evolved image and heightened brand awareness, or enable profession of the future. And also mention proudly that this year marks our highest membership level in our history at 45,206 members to be precise. Some of that as a result probably of COVID. We seem to see members flock to the organization during times of crisis, which is an association norm. But we've been able to provide a lot of different training and other connection opportunities during COVID that I'd like to mention as well. All of these things have been our plan for the last year. And all of them have different components and strategic initiatives and priorities and KPIs associated with each of them. Reimagine and transform our organization speaks to the internal transformation of all of our systems, platforms, approaches, teams, and structure. And the others are a bit self-explanatory, but I'll pause a moment on promote competency and learning, which is what we call CPE. But the CPE we are attempting to produce is more in line with what we would call raising competencies and allowing our members to progress along a continuum of more and learning versus just general CPE, which may include updates. So that's been a big shift in focus for us, is to increase the quality of our CPE to be one of the best, if not the best, in the marketplace in California and nationally. I thought I would share that our feedback from a survey we did in the last 60 days with our membership was basically, what can we do as Cal CPA to better help you as a member? And we had amazing feedback, about 4,000 members, which is statistically very high on a 45,000 membership base. And these are the three broad themes that they came back to tell us what we could do to help them with what was going on with their businesses, be it a CPA firm or employer, if they're members in industry. So we've worked very hard to try and meet these three feedback items: share data to keep members updated on how the profession is doing, create opportunities to engage and learn from each other on new and emerging issues. That's certainly all the things from the CARES Act to how COVID has affected a myriad, if not all, industries in the state and nationally. And also something obvious, helping businesses with reevaluating their budgets and business plans to help ensure long-term sustainability, basically coming out with courses to evaluate any going concern issues or how to help clients through what was obviously for many a cash crunch time. So we worked really hard to try to fulfill these objectives. And let me show you some of the things that we've been working on. We pivoted really quickly and really re-engineered all of our CPE, or our member competency and learning courses. And this is a very small sample of some of our free resources as well as some of our for-pay resources. And you'll see I've highlighted on some of these where we've actually changed the topics to also incorporate here's the industry and here's what COVID has done and here's what you need to know. And we're very proud of that because that was a very quick pivot for us to understand how the industries were impacted, what you see here and other ones. And we've also recently done a free webcast, which we've rebroadcast across the country on disaster recovery and preparedness because of the wildfires. And that was also a very popular course that we were able to get out with 3 financial planners, both in California and in Louisiana. And then we have a continuing array of courses that will continue to address that. And to the point our members had about staying connected, that's something we're also very proud of and had very interesting results, and interesting in a good way, is the baseline of Cal CPA is its chapters. We have 14 chapters across the state, and the purpose of the chapters is to allow them to connect and engage and network and to be educated on various topics. So we obviously had to take all of that virtual, and some of those were very large gatherings or events. I attended one last night where 150 students in our Fresno chapter attended to hear various topics, and we have to mix it up to make sure that an online experience is interesting. You can see in the upper left corner a student San Diego chapter candidate hangout session. So we try to make them as a draw as possible, while also imparting relevant knowledge and information, and sometimes just for the purpose of networking, but generally professional issues will always pop up in those. If we had a lunch and learn or a happy hour, or even we have virtual escape rooms, trivia nights, and again, all of that is to keep the members connected and feeling like they're part of a community in times where they can't make face-to-face contact. And the interesting part about it that I mentioned just a moment ago is that we're seeing record-breaking attendance, and a lot of our evaluations are saying that members, certainly would prefer probably to be in person, but are finding that the connection is even higher, which is my own personal experience. Is you go to an event and you tend to congregate with the people you know, but in a virtual format, and when you're put into breakout rooms, you're very, introduced to new people, and you have the opportunity to network even better. So we've found some level of success in all of this. And we're continuing to reinvent this idea over and over as the chapters come in to give us feedback. And also we've brought all of our meetings to a state level so that our chapters can learn from one another. So some practices have come out of this that we intend to continue after the COVID-19 issue is hopefully over, whenever that might come. So some interesting results on how we stay connected, and also how our CBE has been put on, and we've really wanted to ensure that we can provide our members what they need to help their clients and also their employers and protect the public interest, because the effects of COVID, even if we don't know the answer, it's important to at least raise the questions that they should be asking. And I think from the results of our CPE surveys, we've been accomplishing that and have been learning along the way, and has also learned how to improve our technology platforms and approaches as well, as I'm sure everybody has. One of the things I wanted to mention, I said we were working on a lot of things. The CPA exam, I know a lot of you know a lot about this, but Cal CPA has been extremely participative in the process of the exposure draft that was just finished by AICPA and NASDA on the practice analysis. And we're very involved in feedback on the general premise of what the exam would look like and feel like, and where we had concerns and where we had positive input. As all of you know, there's going to be 3 sections offered on the new exam: accounting, auditing, and tax. Technology will be an underpinning of all 3 of those areas. And then a candidate would choose one of the 3, the green, the blue, or the orange areas for specialization. It results in 1 license still, enhances public protection. I think NASDA and AICPA agree with that, so does Cal CPA. And importantly, it reflects the reality of practice. And that's certainly been my experience by looking at what some of the larger firms, at least, are doing in the audit space. And it's alarming. It's amazing. The technical nature of the training has increased. I always thought if I had to go back and work at Deloitte now, I probably wouldn't last very long. It's an amazing array of audit tools and techniques that are being taught now that aren't being taught in college. So one of the areas that we've looked at to focus on is really, from a level of preparedness, I would like to see Cal CPA lead the country on the preparedness of our colleges and universities for the new exam. We have 4 years, until the new exam, according to plan, is offered, which would mean that students entering college as freshmen this year, my son entering college, by the time the exam is ready, these freshmen will be taking it. So we have really a couple of years before courses are offered that are more reflective of what's on the new exam. So AICPA is committed to developing a resource hub. They've given it a name. I forget. I think it's as easy as the Education and Academic Hub on technology topics so that we can start to begin the understanding process of what educators are going to have to teach. And then they're going to follow that with model curricula and other resources and even model internship programs and a framework all throughout the course of next year, and some things in the first book that I'll launch this year. But all that will help colleges and universities develop courses, again, that will be more reflective of what to expect on the exam so that when that first year of exam taking occurs, that our colleges and universities can have students that are capable of passing as best we can. At least that would be our objective, and we have begun that process in earnest through our academic committee at CalCPA, and we'll continue spreading the word. Right now, a lot of colleges and universities don't understand the full scope of what the change is, so our first step is education, and we've begun that. And we will use the AICPA and NASBA resources to help them pivot to the new courses that they'll have to offer in short order. Peer review is a quick mention. CalCPA is an administering entity for the AICPA. We do peer reviews on California, Arizona, and Alaska. So we administer peer reviews on their behalf in our three states, including ours. We're very proud of the fact that our plan of administration was approved, which is basically what we intend to do for the year and our systems of control over our peer review program. It was approved. And also our first benchmarking report was accepted without any findings. Also something we're very proud of. That's basically AICPA ratcheted up some of the expectations of administering entities on timelines to complete peer reviews, on timelines to issue reports, timelines for contact of firms, et cetera, et cetera. And we were able to meet all those without any additional resources, although we are going to be augmenting our staff this year. The peer review board extended the moratorium on requiring administering entity approval for off-site reviews. That basically means they've allowed peer reviews to be conducted off-site because of COVID, at least through June 30th of next year. If they need longer, the peer review board has stated they would extend it. Quality Control Materials Project is a huge project for AICPA. It will look at audits being performed of organizations that provide quality control materials to CPA firms to help them ensure that they're complying with peer review rules. And then the AICPA's Enhanced Oversight Program was paused for this year. That program looked at heightened reviews of certain industries, for example, employee benefit plans, not-for-profits, were two industries where additional reviews are required above and beyond the norm because of the risk that those industries have presented in the past few years to the profession. So we're doing well on peer review. We're very proud of our position on peer review as being one of the largest in the country for AICPA, and would look to expand that in the coming years as our resources allow. And last, and certainly not least, CalCPA has started its first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. I always start off by saying we did this because we thought it was the right thing to do, and that is we needed to have at least a voice or a small voice and hopefully be able to make change in the profession. But we also see this as a business imperative. We are seeing more and more students that represent underrepresented populations becoming less attracted to the profession, and that's beginning to happen in high school. Some say as early as the freshman year of high school. So our messaging is getting lost at the college level because it's not even being heard at the high school level. My son, for example, started college and had to already declare his major before he set foot on it, before he started classes at his university last month. I didn't decide my major until I was well into my sophomore year of college. So we're trying to work very hard to develop approaches that we'll use. We know we can't boil the ocean on this issue. It's huge. But we do know California is a state that we can look at, and we have a lot of firms and a lot of members in business and industry that we can provide tools and resources to, awareness, education. And the commission had its first meeting last night. and it was very successful, and we'll keep you updated if you're interested in how this initiative works and what our findings are. But we're committed to this, and we will work jointly with AICPA and all the other state societies across the country, and anyone else, any other associations. For example, the Institute of Management Accountants has worked with us to study this issue in depth across the United States. We're expanding our work and scope on this, and we'll keep you posted. And I don't know how much time I just took. I probably should have breathed more, but are there any questions, or that's all I had today to share with you?
Thank you, Anthony. I have a couple of things to add, but I do want to ask the members if they have any questions or comments. We appreciate, and your length was excellent. I mean, very, very informative. Members, do you have any questions or comments for Anthony? Yes, Ms. Molina?
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Pugliese. I appreciate your presentation. And I do want to commend you and the Cal CPA for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission that is now in place. I do appreciate that you are engaging high school students as well as college students. But the diversity, including diversity and equity and inclusion, is so important in this time. And I thank you and Cal CPA for this one.
Thank you so much. We're also passionate about it, and we have one of our Vice Chair, Brad Monterio, is on the call with us today as well. But thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Anything else from the members? And if not, I want to say, taking off my board hat for just a moment, I have been a Cal CPA member for many, many years, and I do see all of the information that you mentioned coming through my emails. And even if this isn't specific to me, I realize and appreciate how helpful it is to other licensees and their clients out there in California and in the nation. So I appreciate how proactive and on the spot Cal CPA has been and continues to be. It's just excellent. We also appreciate the working relationship, fine professional working relationship that we have with Cal CPA and your personnel. We have mutual interest in our licensees and our future licensees in the state of California, and I just can't thank you enough. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Oh, thank you for the comments. We're very happy with our relationship. Thanks for all you do for us, and thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Okay, I'm moving on to agenda item 2B. It's a written report only, discussion of the process for annual officer elections. Members, just please note the deadline of October 9th to have information to Ms. Reed. Agenda item 2C is discussion of the process for annual executive officer evaluation, which is also a written report with some deadlines of October 15th or possibly November 13th. If you're waiting to see the annual report, please have the information to me so that I can summarize and we can cover that item in our November meeting. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2D, California Board of Accountancy 2020 Legislative Tracking Chart is also a written report, as well as E, Department of Consumer Affairs Director's Report on Departmental Activities. That is a written report that is included in your materials. I'm now moving on to agenda item 3, report of the Vice President, Mr. Michael Savoy. I see that for A, recommendations for appointment, reappointment for the Enforcement Advisory Committee, there are none today, nor are there for C, Peer Review Oversight Committee. However, for agenda item 3B, we do have something for the Qualifications Committee. Mr. Savoy?
Thank you, Madam President. This item is to recommend the appointment of Timothy Jones, CPA, to the Qualifications Committee. The Qualifications Committee assists the CBA in its licensure activities by reviewing the experience of applicants for licensure and making recommendations to the CBA. This includes conducting work paper reviews with the applicant or the employer present to verify that the responses provided are reflective of the requisite experience for licensure. I have conferred with the CBA executive officer to verify that Mr. Jones has met the appropriate requirements for licensure renewal and has demonstrated the skills and knowledge to serve on the Qualifications Committee. I hereby recommend that Timothy Jones be appointed as a member of the Qualifications Committee effective September 24, 2020 through September 30th, 2022. I now turn it back over to Ms. Corrigan and ask for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy. So if a member would like to make a motion, please use the raise hand feature. Once I call your name, unmute your microphone and make the motion. Nicholson?
I move to approve Mr. Jones.
Second.
Qualifications Committee, sorry.
Thank you. And if I have a second, would that member please follow the same procedure and state your name for the record, because not everybody can see you, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Silverman?
I second that motion.
Mr. Silverman, is there any further discussion between the members? Seeing that there is none, I will turn it over to the moderator for comments from the public.
This is the moderator. I've opened the Q&A at the request of the board. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. I'll pause for a moment to allow members of the public time to access the feature. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
It has been closed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Reed will now call for the vote. Once she calls your name, members, please unmute your microphone and respond with your vote, and then remute your microphone. Thank you.
Nancy Corrigan?
Yes.
George Familet?
Yes.
Mary Jiang?
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines?
Yes.
Dan Jacobson? Dan Jacobson?
Yes.
Soshi Leon?
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez?
Yes.
Carola Nicholson?
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens?
Yes.
Ariel Pay?
Yes.
Deirdre Robinson? Deirdre Robinson? Katrina Salazar?
Yes.
Michael Savoy?
Yes.
Mark Silverman?
Yes.
Yen Tu?
Yes.
And Deirdre Robinson? And the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Moving on to Agenda Item 4, Report of the Secretary-Treasurer. There is no report on this agenda item today. I will therefore go on to Agenda Item 5, Report of the Executive Officer. Ms. Bowers.
Madam President, with your permission, I'll turn this over to Ms. Pierce for the report on the Communications and Outreach Plan.
Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. The CBA is taking part in 3 virtual outreach events in the span of less than a month, the first of which happened last week. Examination Unit Manager Suzanne Gracia spoke to about 50 finance professionals from the Intel Corporation and discussed the benefits of obtaining a CPA license as well as the requirements. Immediately following today's meeting, President Corrigan will participate in Cal CPA's From Community College to CPA event. With the event being online this time, she will be speaking to students all across the state. You may recall last September's board meeting was held on the campus of Cal Poly Pomona, and the CBA held a successful outreach event in conjunction with the meeting. While the event cannot be in person this year, instead the CBA planned an online event where President Corrigan will speak to hundreds of accounting students and participate in a panel discussion about the industry and how entering the job market may look in 2021. Progress continues on a revamped consumer assistance brochure and updates to the consumer pages of the CBA website. And we are also now posting processing date calendars on our website and social media accounts. There's a graphic which we update every Friday that allows applicants to estimate the length of time it may take their application to be processed. Stakeholders have been very appreciative of this transparency, and the posts even got a write-up on a national accounting blog. CBA social media accounts all showed a good amount of growth in the third quarter, and our LinkedIn has more than doubled its following this year, while the CBA Twitter recently surpassed 3,000 followers. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Members, do you have any questions or comments for Ms. Pierce? Seeing that there are none, I am moving on to Agenda Item 6, Report on the Enforcement Advisory Committee, Qualifications Committee, Peer Review Oversight Committee. First item A, Enforcement Advisory Committee, approval of the 2021 committee meeting dates. Mr. Aguilera.
Good morning. The Enforcement Advisory Committee held its meeting on July 9th via the online platform WebEx. At the meeting, the EAC moved to approve the proposed 2021 EAC meeting dates. Presented in your meeting materials are the proposed dates the EAC is requesting the board to approve. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilera. Members, do we have any questions or comments for Mr. Aguilera? Seeing that there are none, do I have a motion to approve the dates?
So moved.
I don't know who that was. Please state your name.
Deirdre Robinson, my apologies. So moved that the report be accepted.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And now do I have a second? Ms. Hines?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion from the members regarding the first and the second? Seeing that there are none, I will turn it over to the moderator for public comment.
This is the moderator. At the request of the board, I have opened the Q&A feature. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. It has a question mark and a QA next to it. Type in, I would like to make a comment in the ask field and send it to all panelists. I will now pause for a moment to allow members of the public time to access the Q&A feature. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
It has been closed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Reed, would you call for the vote and then provide me with the results?
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
George Familet,
Yes.
Mary Jiang,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines, Carrie Ann Farrell Hines,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
Soshi Leon,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Carola Nicholson,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Deirdre Robinson, Deirdre Robinson, Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Mark Silverman,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
and Deirdre Robinson. The motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6B, Qualifications Committee. This will be included in the report under agenda item 8A, report of the August 12th and September 16th Qualifications Committee meetings. Agenda item 6C, Peer Review Oversight Committee. The report on the August 14th meeting will be included in agenda item 8A, but C2 has to do with approval of the 2021 Peer Review Oversight Committee meeting dates. Mr. DeLizer.
Yes, thank you. For this agenda item, the CBA is being asked to either adopt or modify the 2021 proposed meeting dates. The 4 dates are listed there in your materials. Dates in February, April, August, and December of 2021. I'd like to turn the discussion back over to President Corrigan, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. DeLizer. Do we have any questions or comments, members, for Mr. DeLizer? Seeing that there are none, do I have a motion to approve the dates suggested? Ms. Salazar?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2021 proposed meeting dates for the Peer Review Oversight Committee.
Ms. Salazar. And do I have a second? Ms. Young?
Yes, I would like to second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the members on this matter? Seeing that there are none, I will turn it over to the moderator for any comments from the public.
This is the moderator. I am opening up the Q&A feature at the request from the board. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon, type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field, and send it to all panelists. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
That's been closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, will you now please call for the vote and at the conclusion provide us with the outcome? Thank you.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
George Familet,
Yes.
Mary Jiang,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
Soshi Leon,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Carola Nicholson,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Deirdre Robinson,
At last, yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Mark Silverman,
Yes.
and Yin Tu.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. I am now moving on to agenda item 7, report of the enforcement chief, Mr. Franzella.
Thank you, President Corrigan. Good morning. I'm Dominic Franzella. I'm the board's chief of enforcement. So for agenda item 7A, it's the enforcement activity report, and this report covers the final fiscal year numbers for 1920. So beginning on page 1, with complaints received, we received just shy of 2,300 complaints, which is a 25% decrease compared to the same period of the prior fiscal year. To what extent the current pandemic has on these numbers is unknown, but I would anticipate that it has had some impact. So reading into the numbers is kind of difficult as to whether or not the complaints are down just in general or because of COVID. Moving on to pages 3 through 5 for investigations and investigations pending. The average date to close investigations for the fiscal year was at 82 days, which is a significant decrease compared to the prior 2 fiscal years. Staff closed almost 2,200 complaints, with almost 90% closed in the first 6 months and 98% closed within a year. On page 4, members will see enforcement close the year with 684 cases in its pending inventory, with the majority of those being less than 6 months old. Again, I'd like to just remark on the diligence and the effort of the enforcement team as a whole, and especially the investigative CPAs as it related to some of the more technical cases that normally take a considerable amount of time. And they've done an outstanding job in managing our cases over 24 months. We closed the fiscal year with only 2 cases over 24 months, which is the lowest number we've closed a fiscal year since I can remember, at least since I've taken over in just about 6 years ago. So we've seen that number come down quite a bit. Moving on to discipline, pages 6 through 9 of your report. First, the AG referrals. The CBA referred 51 matters to the AG and filed 58 pleadings, with the vast majority being accusations. On page 7, members will see that the board has 41 pending matters at the AG's office, down from 69 cases from the prior 2 fiscal years. There's 1 matter over 24 months, and it is set for hearing, it's awaiting a new hearing date. It's been continued a couple of times due to continuances related to COVID. Moving to page 8, the CBA took action on 69 disciplinary matters, with the vast majority, over 80%, being stipulated settlements. On page 10 of your report is the citation and fines. We issued 174 citations, with over 80% being for the minimum yearly CE requirement, commonly the 20 and 12 requirement. We did see a reduction in the average days to close, down by 53 days of the prior fiscal year, and then 121 days when compared to 2 fiscal years ago. On page 11, we highlight some information on unlicensed activity. We received 142 complaints of unlicensed activity, and presently have 75 matters still pending in the investigative stages. And lastly, for probation monitoring, on pages 12 and 13, we presently have 140 individuals on probation, and we have identified 84 probation violations, with the vast majority being cost reimbursements and submitting quarterly reports. So at this time, I'll turn discussion back over to President Corrigan, and we'll do my best to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Franzella. Members, any questions or comments for Mr. Franzella? Ms. Young, I do see your hand raised. Did you have a question or comment? Thank you. Ms. Salazar.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for the hard work the staff has been doing and also for that report. I think my question is, can you just reiterate the forms in which consumers, because as I do see that our external complaints are down, there's variation year to year. You mentioned it could be, related to just general issues within the state, but can you please reiterate for the public just the ways in which our Board of Accountancy is still currently accepting consumer complaints? Thank you.
Yes, of course, Ms. Salazar. So the board does maintain on its website the option to fill out a online form that gets submitted to our office directly, and that's one manner in which you can file a complaint. Additionally, you can download the form and submit it via mail or fax to the board, and we are always open to taking complaints to the best of our ability if you call in, but we will likely need to follow up with some type of documentation and information that way. But there's various aspects, various ways individuals can file a complaint with the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franzella. Seeing that there are no further questions or comments from board members, I will move on to agenda item 8, report of the licensing chief. Ms. Center.
Thank you, President Corrigan. I'm Michelle Center, licensing chief here at the board. I will be presenting item 8A, our licensing activity report. This report covers the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020. First, I'd like to apologize for the minor typo on page 1 where it read inquiries instead of inquiries, and maybe congratulate all of those that were able to find such a typo. As I mentioned at the July CBA meeting, processing timelines in the licensing division have been significantly impacted by the pandemic. This has resulted in much longer than usual processing time frames for both examinations and initial licensing applications. Please know that CBA management as well as CBA staff are participating in voluntary overtime to address the backlog of applications. I am excited to announce that staff within the licensing division have been working closely with candidates to pilot a new system to accept official transcripts sent directly by a college or a recognized third-party transcript provider through a secure online service. We have already accepted a handful of applications submitted in this fashion and look forward to implementing this solution more widely over the next several months. If you turn your attention to page 1 of the LAR, you will note that data covers the 1920 fiscal year. It shows we received over 60,000 applications. Of those, approximately 64% were for renewals. There were over 100,000 stakeholder inquiries in the form of email as well as telephone calls. The report also contains trend information beginning on page 2. As documented in the report, caution should be used when interpreting trend data. As you know, the pandemic has impacted our processing of applications, and in addition to that, the processing of backlogged applications in the prior year may also represent an anomaly. Turning to page 5, you may note that the number of renewal applications received in fiscal year 1920 is similar to the number of applications received in the fiscal year 2018-19. On page 6, you will see it addresses deficiencies and continuing education audits. The number of deficiencies identified in fiscal year 2019-20 is similar to that from fiscal year 2018-19. The LAR also contains an update on the most recent Peer Review Oversight Committee and Qualifications Committee meetings. A Peer Review Oversight Committee, or PROC meeting, was held virtually on August 14, 2020. The PROC discussed and provided feedback regarding the approval of its 2021 meeting dates, which you just heard as agenda item 6, I believe. The PROC also discussed the need to conduct the annual administrative site visit of Cal CPA virtually. The next PROC meeting is to be held virtually on December 11th, 2020. The Qualifications Committee, or QC, held off-cycle subcommittee meetings on August 12, 2020 and September 16, 2020. Both of these meetings were conducted virtually. At the August 12, 2020 subcommittee meeting, there were a total of 8 Section 69 reviews. Of those, 7 were recommended for approval of a CPA license and 1 was deferred. At the September 16, 2020 subcommittee meeting, there were a total of 5 Section 69 reviews, and of those, 4 were recommended for approval of a CPA license and 1 was deferred. The next qualifications committee meeting will be held virtually on October 21st. That concludes my presentation. I will turn it back over to President Corrigan, and I'm happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Ms. Center. Members, any questions or comments for Ms. Center? And seeing that there are none, I am ready to move on to agenda item 9, meeting minutes.
Madam President, I have a question.
I'm sorry, I'm seeing that now. Ms. Nicholson, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm interested I'm sure that COVID has had a really bad outcome in trying to review, and we've heard a couple of comments from the public. I know that this is very hard. I'm trying to figure out, what are we doing? Are we finding a new way or something a little bit faster to expedite applications? And I thank you. I'm sure that this is hard, having people working at home and social distancing. So I appreciate this.
Thank you, Member Nicholson. I believe that Ms. Bowers did also mention earlier changes to processes that we've implemented. So we've done several things. One was some changes to processes to allow us to get licenses submitted earlier. So we just implemented that a couple weeks ago, so that will help us quite a bit. We also are doing overtime, both weekend overtime and weekly overtime. In addition to that, we have completely rolled out our technology so that our staff can efficiently telework from home, much easier than maybe we were doing at the beginning of the pandemic. So we've done all those things. We're also continuing to review the processes that we have and look for additional ways that we can improve our processing times. Please know that I know this is important to you, and it is also important to me, and we definitely prioritize this work within our division.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jacobson, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you very much. Ms. Center, thank you. I appreciate you mentioned voluntary overtime. I just wanted to make sure that I understood what voluntary meant. Are you getting paid for that overtime?
Member Jacobson, what a great clarifying question. Yes, they are getting paid. We are just not forcing our staff to work on weekends. But let me tell you, we have plenty of staff that are happy to volunteer their time on the weekend to help us with this.
Thank you, and thank you all very much for doing that.
Thank you. Ms. Salazar, did I miss your hand earlier? Do you have a question?
Thank you. I had to follow up with the other questions, had a minor question. I noticed that there were a handful of denials for the retired applicant status, and I'm just curious if there was a story there or anything that is helpful for us to know. I would assume it would simply be the applicant didn't understand the criteria. But is there any particular reason why we're starting to see retirees denied? Because we may see more people choose to retire as this, pandemic continues and people's practices could be impacted. And so I'm just curious if it's an opportunity to communicate to our licensees some additional information. Thank you.
Ms. Salazar, this is Dominic Franzella. The denial can be one for just not meeting the qualifications, the amount of time, whether or not it's the 20 years or the 5 years in California. But there is also times where individuals who are currently have pending enforcement matters will seek to retire the license during the course of the investigation or during the filing of an accusation or other proceedings. And in those instances, the statute mandates that their application be denied. So that is also a factor in a number of those where individuals, even ones on probation, seek to try to retire that license status but are prohibited because of the stipulation and because of the statute.
Thank you.
Questions on Ms. Center's report? And now, seeing that there are none, I will move on to agenda item 9, meeting minutes. And agenda item 9A is minutes of July 23rd, 2020. I need a motion to adopt those minutes. Nicholson?
This is Carola Nicholson. I move to adopt the minutes of July 23rd.
And do I have a second, Ms. Owens?
Yes, I second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion of this item from the members? Seeing none, I will pass this over to the moderator for any public comments.
This is the moderator. At the request of the board, I've opened the Q&A feature. Members of the public, you can click on the Q&A icon at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. I'll pause for a moment to allow members of the public time to access the Q&A feature. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
It has been closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, would you call for the vote and then provide the results at the end?
All right. Nancy Corrigan?
Yes.
George Familet?
Yes.
Mary Jiang?
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines?
Yes.
Dan Jacobson?
Yes.
Soshi Leon?
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez?
Yes.
Carola Nicholson?
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens? Dee Dee Owens? Ariel Pay?
Yes.
Deirdre Robinson?
Yes.
Katrina Salazar?
Yes.
Michael Savoy?
Yes.
Yen Tu? Yen Tu?
Sorry about that. Yes. Can you also record me for abstain for the February 14 and 6 meeting because I was not there?
Okay. Those are under the next motion.
Now we're just discussing the board minutes. Thank you.
Okay, correct. Thank you.
And going back to Ms. Owens, Dee Dee Owens?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. I'm now moving on to agenda items 9B and C. This would be the acceptance of the minutes of the February 14th, 2020 Peer Review Oversight Committee meeting and acceptance of the minutes of the February 6th, 2020 Enforcement Advisory Committee meetings. Members, may I have a motion? Ms. Salazar?
Thank you, President Corrigan. I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the February 14th, 2020 Peer Review Oversight Committee meeting and the February 6th EAC meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And members, do I have a second to that? Mr. Jacobson?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion of this item from the members? Seeing that there is none, I will turn it over to the moderator for any public discussion. Thank you.
This is the moderator. I've opened the Q&A at the request of the board. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field, and you can click on the Q&A icon to get that field open. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Please.
Thank you. It has been closed.
Reed, would you call for the vote? And at the end, please provide us with the result.
Nancy Corrigan?
Yes.
George Familet?
Yes.
Mary Jiang? Mary Jiang? Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines?
Yes.
Dan Jacobson?
Yes.
Soshi Leon?
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez?
Yes.
Carola Nicholson?
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens?
Abstain.
Ariel Pay?
Yes.
Deirdre Robinson?
Yes.
Katrina Salazar?
Yes.
Michael Savoy?
Yes.
Yin Tu?
Abstain.
And Mary Jiang?
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Moving on to agenda item 10, other business, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, report on meetings of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants attended by a CBA representative. And under item A, Business Environment and Concepts Subcommittee, of which I am a member, I participated in the following AICPA Business Environment and Concepts, or BEC, portion of the CPA exam subcommittee Zoom meetings since our July meeting as follows: July 30th, August 12th, August 26th, September 9th. These 2-hour meetings are for the purpose of reviewing multiple choice questions and task-based simulations or problems for the BEC section of the CPA exam. And we do this for clarity, accuracy, and technical correctness of these items as a part of the inventory of BEC exam questions. And if there are no questions for me regarding my report, I will call upon Ms. Salazar for State Board Committee report.
Thank you very much, President Corrigan. And since I have a couple following reports, would it be acceptable for me to give those as well?
Certainly.
Thank you. So for item B, the State Board Committee, that is an AICPA subcommittee. The next meeting will be on October 21st virtually. But I do want to remind our board members that in the July packet, everyone received information about the AICPA committees, and I want to remind folks that volunteer applications are being accepted to the AICPA through October 1st. So please refer back to that and consider your ability to participate in 2021. Thank you. The next item is B for the NASBA, the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. And item 1 is a report of NASBA specific regional director. So as most of the board members already know, I am, in addition to being your California Board of Accountancy member, I am also the regional director for NASBA. And so I'd like to just update you briefly on the NASBA board meeting. So after our meeting in July, the NASBA meeting did have a board meeting, and the most significant item on that board agenda was something that the president of CalCPA mentioned in his earlier presentation, was the passage of the CPA Evolution Initiative. So I would remind our board members who are newer to the board, if you are not familiar with that issue yet, you can go to, and the public as well, you can go to evolutionofcpa.org and see a little bit more information about what that means. And in terms of NASBA's next board meeting, there will be one in October, and that will be primarily to address the UAA model rules proposals. And I would like to thank our Board of Accountancy for evaluating those model rules changes that were being proposed and also offering a comment letter. So I very much appreciate that participation from this board. The regional groups also do calls, and so the regional participants, which are executive directors and board presidents or chairs of each jurisdiction, did participate on September 16th. So I would like to thank Patty Bowers and President Corrigan for representing our state of California on that call. It was the first regional call we have participated in since continuous testing began nationwide for the CPA exam on July 1st. The message coming from boards in our region was very consistent and not unexpected. Boards are facing budget issues and travel restrictions. The good news is we are hearing that board business is continuing in all of the region, in all of the states within our region. Again, the challenge is timelines and responding quickly, and so this is sort of a theme across all of our boards. Of interest is on the horizon, there are some issues with remote testing. So the AICPA is looking at worst case scenarios. Is it possible to issue the CPA exam on a remote basis? Our exam is considered a high stakes exam. And so that is being evaluated. And I do know on NASBA's side, the CBT, the Computer-Based Testing Committee, as well as the Executive Directors Committee are evaluating those. So again, it is important if you are a California board member to volunteer for other organizations' committees so that you can participate in those sort of frontline conversations. In addition, the AICPA has sent out an email this month. I got mine around September 4th, I believe, that they've launched a new domain called .cpa. So the AICPA is now allowing registered firms to apply to use a .cpa internet domain. So it's called a high-level domain. And so that's something new. As a board member, I think that's of interest because boards have rules about holding out as CPA. So as a board member, I'm curious to see how that's implemented and how that applies to staff on an applicable firm's staff list that maybe is still a candidate for licensure. So it's just something to be aware of is out there. In terms of NASBA's events, they continue to be virtual. So I would like to share with our board members the invitation to attend the NASBA annual meeting, and that is held November 2nd through the 4th of this year. It is virtual again. It is the 113th such meeting that has been held, and it has the wonderful price of free. So I really encourage our board members who are able to register to attend, and also please communicate with Patty Bowers if you are registering as well, just so she is aware of that. And that concludes the Pacific Region Director report, and I would like to comment on my final item, which is the NASBA Bylaws Committee, which is 2A of our agenda, and would mention that there are edits to the bylaws for NASBA this year. They will go to the NASBA membership for a vote, and so hopefully our board will have a voting representative present to vote yes or no on that, but the updates relate to 2 areas, and they are the expansion of teleconferencing options to accommodate virtual meetings and clarify how virtual relates to in-person within our meeting guidelines. And then there are changes to the nominating committee to allow more flexibility with existing deadlines. And also, the primary role of nominating committee is to elect the next board chair. And so it allows that committee to look beyond the initial proposed selection of candidates. And that is specifically a desired goal to allow NASBA to meet their diversity process, to then look beyond and discuss candidates who may not have submitted a letter of interest prior to the deadline. So with that, that concludes my report. There was an email to all members about those bylaws. And so if you did not receive that or you're not receiving reports from NASBA, please let me know. Usually it means there's been a software update, but all of our board members should be receiving communications in their board designated email to provide additional information for these. Thank you very much. And I turn this back to Nancy Corrigan in case there are questions.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar. I do see a hand raised for question or comment to Ms. Salazar's report. Ms. Melina Lopez.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Ms. Salazar, for those reports. I do appreciate knowing the business that happens. I had a question about the exam, the CPA exam. You commented that there was an attempt to do remote. Is that a part? Is that due to COVID, and is it apart from the sitting down at the centers to take the exam?
Thank you for that question. I believe it's both. The evaluation of a true remote test is sort of a worst case scenario that is being evaluated because centers are closing and candidates in some instances are being challenged with not being able to take an exam at a physical location. And so this is in the very early stages of being considered. And what I would share is that what I've heard is there are great concerns with high stakes testing being done remotely. And I would be looking forward to the AICPA's committees as well as NASBA's committees with addressing those. So there is a component where AICPA is looking at improving how their test is rolled out. So there's a technology component. And in tandem with that, they're also looking at the ability and the ways that true remote testing could happen with our candidates. So again, that is remote testing that is not in a test center. So hopefully that answers your question a little, and I think it's an emerging issue that we will hear more about.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar. Yes, that does address my question, and I am interested in learning more. If you are able to provide further information at future meetings, this is of key interest. And I do have an additional comment. I am not a CPA. I am on this board as a representative of the public, and so I do appreciate the ability to be able to become more knowledgeable about CPA information. You mentioned the website for the evolution of CPA. Could you repeat that website so I can look that up?
Yes, thank you. That is www.evolutionofcpa.org. So that is all one word, evolution of CPA. And on that website, you will actually see some of the slides that were presented by Cal CPA. So it may look a little bit familiar. I believe there's some of the same information there as well. And since you mentioned websites, the NASBA annual meeting agenda is available on the NASBA website. And because we do have a board of licensees and public members, all of our board members are invited to attend. It is for our non-CPA and our CPA members. So that is an open invitation, of course. Thank you.
Bowers, would you please address the NASBA annual meeting for us? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, President Corrigan. This is Patty Bowers. For those members who might be interested in attending one of NASBA's meetings, if you could, before registering, please email me. We do need to make sure that we address any quorum issues at those meetings. We do have limitations on the number of members that can attend. However, Ms. Salazar has asked that I reach out to NASBA to see if there are ways that we could open that up to more board members. For example, we may have 2 actual participants, and then the remaining interested board members would be in a listen-only capacity. And so if you are interested, please do email me directly, and we'll see what we can do going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Ms. Young, I believe you may have had a question or comment from Ms. Salazar.
Yes. You mentioned about the new .cpa email, instead of .com, you can use .cpa. I was curious, who's going to be monitoring? Who's eligible? Assuming that somebody is a licensed CPA, they may be able to apply for this, but is somebody monitoring if they are not later not a member in good standing, or Francel Dominic go say, I'm sorry, your license is suspended? Is anybody monitoring, or is it just, I'm just curious, what is that, how this thing might work out?
Hi, thank you. This is Patty Bowers again. And actually, we are going to make a staff assignment to explore that website to make sure that there are no concerns with individuals not holding a valid license using that website, and whether or not, if they are, that would constitute unlicensed activity. So we will be looking into that, and you can anticipate us bringing something forward either to a future board meeting or in one of my future EO monthly reports.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments regarding Ms. Salazar's report, I'm going to continue with agenda item 10B2B, Continuing Professional Education Committee, of which I am a member of that NASBA committee. I attended the Zoom meeting on September 11th, where we discussed the following. One was the National Registry of CPE Providers. There are now 2,300 such sponsors or providers, with 90% of those being live, and of course, as you can imagine, a growing trend toward internet-based group presentations. So a definite change in presentation formats that has led to CPE documentation issues. We have rules and regulations about documenting, being able to prove and earn the hours, et cetera. So issues with documentation and attendance monitoring that has developed, especially with the group participation items. So NASBA has increased its desk audits of these sponsors and providers and implemented a compliance policy for follow-up, penalties, required correction plans, et cetera. We were assured at this meeting that generally those sponsors and providers correct the items very quickly because, of course, they want to protect their reputations and they want to remain on that approved list for qualified CPE to licensees. So they're really working on that diligently right now. We also discussed the various states accepting or rejecting nano and blended learning methodologies and how to educate those states on the benefits. You recall that our board approved it, and right now it's just awaiting inclusion in our legislature. But many states have not or possibly don't understand, so that some work of this committee is to try to further that cause. We discussed the need to update CPE standards to become current and up to date with the times and terminology and these new methodologies. The last update to these standards was December 2019. This process generally occurs every 2 years, so it will be occurring again before too long. That concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions regarding this meeting that you might have. And seeing that there are none, I am going to move on to agenda item 10.3. That is a discussion on approval of staff responses to the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy's focus questions. Ms. Reed.
Good morning. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide the CBA with staff proposed responses to the NASBA focus questions. The responses assist the NASBA regional directors with staying apprised of each state's policies, procedures, and recent activities. The CBA may make a motion to approve the attached focus questions or direct staff to make any changes prior to submitting the responses to NASBA. And at this time, I would like to turn it back over to President Corrigan and would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions or comments for Ms. Reed on this agenda item? Seeing that there are none, do I have a motion to adopt the recommendation? Ms. Hines?
Move to adopt the recommendations, the answers, the responses to the focus questions.
Ms. Hines, and do I have a second? Ms. Tu?
I would like to second that motion.
Tu, is there any further discussion from the members on this item? I see that there are none. I will turn it over to the moderator for any public comments on this item. Thank you.
This is the moderator. At the request of the board, I've opened the Q&A feature. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type, I would like to make a comment in the ask field and send it to all panelists. I'll pause for a moment to allow members of the public time to access the Q&A feature. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you. It has been closed.
Reed, would you call for the vote and then just provide us with the result?
Nancy Corrigan?
Yes.
George Familet?
Yes.
Mary Jiang?
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines?
Yes.
Dan Jacobson?
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez?
Yes.
Carola Nicholson?
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens?
Yes.
Ariel Pay?
Yes.
Deirdre Robinson?
Yes.
Katrina Salazar?
Yes.
Michael Savoy?
Yes.
And Yin Tu?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. I'm moving on to agenda item 11, closing business. This agenda item is for future California Board of Accountancy meetings and any items for that agenda, possible future agenda items. Members? Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you. I want to reiterate what I have for years asked to be agendized, and that is a discussion on the meaning of substantial relationship to the practice of accountancy relative to the basis for discipline that we provide. I will add that as directed by our previous counsel, I long ago sent staff an 18 or 19-page memorandum regarding this subject and recently sent an update in the past few months, so that's available. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. Anything else from any other members? Seeing that there are none, we will break for lunch early, but let me just read you an item regarding going into closed session for all those in attendance to be aware. So we're going to convene into closed session after having deliberated on all the open session items except for adjournment. Due to technological limitations, adjournment will not be broadcast. Adjournment will immediately follow closed session, and there will be no other items of business discussed. Thank you, and we will now break for lunch.
When do we come back?
Apologize for that. I should give you a timeline. So it is 11:40. What about 12:45? Give everybody an hour or so. Very good, and then we can proceed. Thank you.
Do we just stay online? We don't sign off, right?
Yes, you can do that. You might mute your microphone and turn off your video, and then it'll be just ready to rejoin when we reconvene. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.